Welcome, welcome, welcome. Thank you for listening here at the Loretta Nash Lore's Blog or Loretta Nash Show Lore's Blog. I'm, of course, Loretta Nash, and I'm here to read on this book called Bible Readings for the Home. Give me a second. Something's unbalanced. Trying to get it. Looks a little weird to me. Here. And so I'm going to read from this book. Sorry about all the scooting noises and everything. It's early in the morning and I really didn't prep up enough. And I guess I could date this, give you a date, but I really don't think I really need to, because you're listening and whomever is out there is listening, and they will listen when they want to. And if I put a ambiguous date on it, you can use this anytime. These readings, this book is actually a study book. You can use it as a study book, studying. I'm just reading what the book has. I might interject a few things that I understand and what I during trained for. Or what I remember in high school and college, in Bible school. I, of course, did go to a Bible college, and what's neat about that is I have a degree in art, of all things. And I guess I can just go ahead and read this book for the time being until I find something else to do. So this is one of 21 readings that I've read out of this book. 21 episodes. So what really got me started reading this, and I think I probably took them down off my podcast, is I almost threw it away, but I got a book that the library was give out. It was Southern by some soldiers that were in, because it's 1930 something, so they were possibly older versions in the Civil War, or memories from Civil War. But don't worry about that book. Okay, that book is here. It's over here. I guess I'm gonna read books with my horrible sight reading, which I really do have horrible sight reading. That's why I really didn't read too well in high school, elementary school, junior high, and high school. And then when I got to college, I tried out for plays and stuff, and the sight I didn't do very good at sight reading either. Okay, so let's get back. Let me start reading from Bible Readings for the Home. We are in section 9 of the book, and big blue headline said, Christ and the Sabbath. Okay, so maker and keeper of the Sabbath. Question: of what did Christ say the Son of Man is Lord? Quote, the Son of Man is Lord even of the Sabbath day. Matthew 12:8. Also see Mark 2:28. Who made the Sabbath? That's the question. Quote, and all things were made by him. Bracket, Christ the Word. St. John 1, verse 3. Note, Christ was the creative agent. And then it refers back to a previous page. Question. Did Christ, while on earth, keep the Sabbath? Quote, as his custom was, he went into the synagogue on the Sabbath day and stood up to read. Luke 4:16. So on Saturdays, every Saturday, well, on his ministry or during his whole 33 years, well, we don't know if he could talk early or not, but he read every Saturday. They had this thing that people would stand up and would read the Torah. Okay, so let me get back to the book. Okay, mini subheadline: Debate on how to keep the Sabbath. Excuse me. Something's in my mouth. Okay. Debate on how to keep the Sabbath. Question. Although the Lord, maker and observer of the Sabbath, how was he watched and spied upon this day? Quote, and the scribes and Pharisees watched him, whether he would heal on the Sabbath day, that they might find an accusation against him. Luke 6:7. Question. How did Christ meet their false ideas of Sabbath keeping? Quote, then said Jesus, is it lawful on the Sabbath day to do good or to do evil, to save life or to destroy it? Verse 9. So Luke 6, verse 9. Question. How did they manifest their displeasure at his healing of the man that with the withered hand on the Sabbath? Quote, and they were filled with madness and commuted one another what they might do to Jesus. Verse 11. Luke 6:11. Okay. Quote, and the Pharisees went forth straightway, took counsel, that how they might destroy him. Mark 3:6. Note, although the miracle of Christ performed had given evidence that he was from God, they were angry because he had shown their views of the Sabbath keeping were wrong, to be wrong. Wounded pride, obstinacy, obstinancy, and malice, therefore combined and filled them with madness, and they went out immediately and held counsel with the Herodians, their political enemies, for the purpose of accomplishing his death. Sorry, the words started getting weird, and I started talking robot. Sorry. I have this habit. Okay. Question. Because Jesus healed a man on the Sabbath day and told him to take up his bed and walk, what did the Jews do? Quote, therefore did the Jews persecute Jesus and sought to slay him, because he had done these things on the Sabbath day. St. John 5:16. Note, It is noteworthy that not not the least of the malice that finally caused his crucifixion was engendered. Yeah, that's what it says. Engendered over this very question of Sabbath obedience. Christ did not keep the Sabbath according to their ideas, so they sought to kill him. Many today cherish this same spirit because some do not agree with their ideas of the Sabbath or Sabbath observance. They seek to persecute and oppress them, seek laws and alliances with political powers to compel respect to their own views. Now we have another question. How did Jesus answer them? Quote, But Jesus answered them, My Father worketh hereto, and I work. Verse 17. Let's see. John 5:7. St. John 5:17. Okay. Note the ordinary operation of nature, as manifested in God's almighty upholding benefit and healing power, go on the Sabbath to cooperate with God and nature in the work of healing on the Sabbath cannot therefore be out of the harmony with God's Sabbath law. So basically saying that it's not against the law or against God's law to not do, or I'm not sure. Sorry, I just wanted to go off on a tangent there, but never mind. Okay. Question: What effect did the answer have upon the Jews? What effect did the answer have upon the Jews? Quote, Therefore the Jews sought the more to kill him. Verse 18. So St. John 5:17 and St. John 5:18. Okay. Question. Because the disciples plucked a few heads of grain on the Sabbath to satisfy hunger, what did the Pharisees say? Quote, And the Pharisees said unto him, Behold, why do they on the Sabbath day that which is not lawful? Mark 2:24. Now I can go in here. Now what they're saying is they were thinking that they were working because they were hungry and they went and got some grain and ate it off the the stalk, and they said and they considered that work. But there was certain places I read one time in the Bible that certain places in a field was meant for the poor to get. The edges, the edge corners were supposed to be for for people, for the ones that didn't have the money, or for the stranger. It's just getting really. They have really had back then. They really had messed up things, And so this book is trying to clarify. But let me go ahead and get back to this. Okay, question. What was Christ's reply? Quote, and he said unto them, have ye never read what David did when he had need and was hungered, he and they that were with him, how he three dots did eat the showbread, which is not lawful to eat because not okay, did eat the showbread, which is not lawful to eat, but for the priest, and have also to them which were with him. And he said unto them, the Sabbath was made for man, and not man for the Sabbath. Verses 25 through 27. So Mark 2:25 through 27. Question. What was said of Christ healing a woman one Sabbath? Quote, the ruler of the synagogue answered, three dots, there are 6 days in which men ought to work. In them, therefore, come and be healed, and not on the Sabbath day. Luke 13, verse 14. Quote, what was Christ's answer? Question, what was Christ's answer? Quote, thou hypocrite, thou doest not each one of you on the Sabbath lose your ox and your donkey, I'm not going to say the real word, and his donkey from a stall and lead him away to water? And ought not this woman, being a daughter of Abraham, whom Satan hath bound, these 17 years, be loosed from the bond on the Sabbath? Luke 13, verse 15 and 16. Okay. Question. What effect did Christ's answer have upon the people? Quote, and all his adversaries were ashamed, and all the people rejoiced for all the glorious things that were done by him. Verse 17. Luke 13, verse 17. Question. How did Christ justify acts of mercy on the seventh day? Quote, excuse me again. Okay, quote, what man shall there be among you that shall have one sheep, and if it fall into a pit on the Sabbath day, will he not lay hold of it and lift it out? How much then is one man better than a sheep? Wherefore it is lawful to do well on the Sabbath days. Matthew 12, verse 11 and 12. See also Luke 14, 5 and 6. Note, quote, Jesus observed the Sabbath of his own people. It was his custom to worship in the synagogue on the Sabbath day. After he entered upon his own ministry, he and his followers continued to recognize and use the Sabbath day, but according to his own individual and spiritual insights and interpretation. Even when Sabbath observance was made one of the chief grounds of bitter antagonism, antagonism to him and the Pharisees. He continued his his recantation of the Sabbath and uttered no words that can properly be construed as lack of deep reverence. Apparently, he expected that his followers would continue to hold and calculate the spirit of the historic Sabbath. W. O. Carver, Sabbath of his book Sabbath Observance, page 25, copyright 1940 by the Sunday School Board of the Southern Baptist Convention, used by permission. Oh, there's a lot of stuff. Okay, you can always check me with my verses. If you have access to a Bible or know where to get one, check up on these. I'm just reading what this book has. Is references to verses, and you can always stop and rewind. That's what's cool about podcasts and stuff. You can always stop, rewind, and go back and listen to my fluctuations and all this, and double check me, because that's what I've always learned. Even when I was all church people want you to double check them, not to, by what they say, but for your own volition. I guess that would be the right word. Your own volition, for your own gain of knowledge. Check it. Go back, look at it. Okay, I'm going to take a small little break. And I want to, maybe a small break from reading, to ask for, okay, unspoken prayer. There's no big elaborate thing that you have to do without prayer. All you really have to do is just talk. Because basically, that's what prayer is. It's just talk. But you're talking to a higher person, or talking to somebody. And always, the reason why I'm saying unspoken, because he knows, and he will reveal it to whomever that he wants it revealed. Just a lot of things are going on. Just keep us in mind. And oh yeah, and of course you can hear this podcast here, whatever platform I got it on. I've got it on, at least I got it on 3 platforms that I know for sure. Got it here on YouTube, and then I got it on Spreaker, and then I got it on Spotify. I think that's right. I know I got it on 3 different platforms that I'm doing this podcast, reading podcast, whatever. I know the Spotify and the other one. Let's see, the Spotify and the Spreaker. I have monetized it. Yes, I've monetized it. Yes, I'm not trying to, get some money. Lord knows we need it, but He will provide a way. I just, just want to let you know that that's where we're at. that you're here on whichever platform that you're listening to me on. Um, Two of them has monetized, and one of them, of course, not, because even though I have a lot of videos or made a few videos, um, I don't have enough people. Go ahead and subscribe. Uh, yeah, subscribe and follow and do whatever you until we can do what you need to. Okay, well that got that. I know I'm so mixed up, and that was not a good thing. Um, okay, let me get back to Bible readings for the home. Okay, book. Let me go back. Okay, question: what dispute did Christ's miracles cause? What dispute did Christ's miracles cause? Quote, therefore said some of the Pharisees, this man is not of God, because he keeps not the Sabbath day. Others says, how can a man that is a sinner do such miracles? St. John 9:16. Note, by these miracles God was setting a seal of his approval to Christ's views and teachings respecting the Sabbath and his manner and to his manner of observing it. Thus, considering the narrow and false views of the Pharisees, hence the division. Now we got another another subheadline. It says Jesus magnifies the Sabbath. Quote, question: according to Isaiah, what was Christ to do with the law? Quote, and he shall magnify the law and make it honorable. Isaiah 42:21. Note, in nothing perhaps was this more striking fulfilled than the matter of the Sabbath observance, but their numerous traditional regulations that senseless restrict the Jews had on the Sabbath a burden, and anything but a delight. Christ removed all these, and by his life and teachings restored the Sabbath to the proper place as the day of worship, of contemplating of God, a day of doing acts of charity and mercy. Thus he manifested it to make it honorable. One of the most prominent features of Christ's ministry was the works of the Sabbath reform. Christ did not abolish or change the Sabbath, but he rescued it from the rubbish of tradition, false ideas, and superstitions by which it had been degraded. The Pharisees had placed the institution above man and against man. Christ revealed in order and said, quote, the Sabbath was made for man, not man for the Sabbath, end quote. He showed that it was to minister to the happiness and well-being of both man and beast. Question: in view of the coming destruction and desolation of the city of Jerusalem, for what did Christ tell his disciples to pray? Quote, but pray ye that your flight is not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Matthew 24:20. Note. It's a long one, I think. Yep, it looks like a long one. Okay, note. Quote, Christ is here speaking of the flight of the apostles and other Christians out of Jerusalem and Judea just before their final destination, their final destruction, as is manifested by the whole context, and especially by the 16th verse. Then let them which be in Judea flee unto the mountains. But the final destruction of Jerusalem was far the delusion of the Jewish constitution. And after the Christians dispensation was fully set up. Yet it is plainly implied in this verse of the Lord that even then Christians were bound to a strict observance of the Sabbath. End quote. Jonathan Edwards, in his book Works, reprinted of Worcester edition, 1844-1848, volume 4, page 621 and 622. Okay. Quote, the great teacher never intimidated that the Sabbath was a ceremonial observance to cease with the Mosaic ritual. Instead of anticipating its extinction along with the ceremonial law, he spake of its existence after the downfall of Jerusalem. See Matthew 24:20. End quote. W.D. Killen, Irish Protestant, in his book The Ancient Church, 1883 edition, page 188. Lots and lots of stuff. And this book really hadn't been open in a really long time. And I found my thing I said I was looking for. I found it yesterday. And I put it somewhere that I found in this book. I had it in another book. I cleaned up my little pile of books yesterday, and they're about to be taken to the dump. Okay, now we're in a new subheadline, or new headline. A big blue one says the Sabbath in the New Testament. Okay. Subheadline: the Sabbath and the cross. Question: what day immediately preceded the first day of the week? Quote, in the end of the Sabbath, as it began dawn towards the first day of the week. Matthew 28, verse 1. Note, according to the New Testament, therefore, the Sabbath had passed when the first day of the week began. Okay. Question: after the crucifixion, what day was kept by the women who followed Jesus? After the crucifixion, what day was kept by the women who followed Jesus? Quote, and they returned and prepared spices and ointments, and rested on the Sabbath day according to the commandments. Luke 23:56. Question. What day of the week was the Sabbath according to the commandment? Quote, but the seventh day is seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord by God. Exodus 20 verse 10. Now we got another subheadline. It says Jesus and the Sabbath. Question. What was Christ's custom representing the Sabbath? Quote, and he came to Nazareth, where he had been brought up, and as was his custom, he went unto the synagogue on the Sabbath day, and stood up and read. Luke 4:16. Question. In what instruction of his disciples In what instruction to his disciples did Christ recognize the existence of the Sabbath long after his ascension? Quote, pray ye that your flight be not in the winter, neither on the Sabbath day. Matthew 24:20. Note, the flight of the Christians took place late in October AD 66 or CE 66, 3.5 years before the fall of Jerusalem. For Jesus' attitude towards the Sabbath, see the preceding reading. Now we have another subheadline that says Paul and the Sabbath. Quote, on that day did Paul and Barnabas preach. On what day did Paul and Barnabas preach at Antioch? Excuse me again. Quote, and they came to Antioch in Pisidia, and went unto the synagogue on the Sabbath day. Acts 13:14. Question. When did the Gentiles ask Paul to repeat his sermon? Quote, and when the Jews were gone out of the synagogue, the Gentiles besought that these words might be preached to them the next Sabbath. Verse 42. That's Acts 13:42. Okay. Question. On what day did Paul preach to the women at Philippi? Quote, and on the Sabbath we went out of the city by the riverside, where prayer was wont to be made. And we sat down, and we spake unto the women which restored thither. Acts 16 verse 13. So they were down by the riverside in Philippi is the answer. Okay. Question. On what day did Paul preach to the Jews at Thessalonica? Quote, and they came to Thessalonica, where was a synagogue of the Jews. And Paul, as his manner was, went unto them, and and 3 Sabbath days reasoned with them out of the Scripture. Acts 17:1 and 2. Note, it was Paul's manner, as was with Christ's custom, Luke 4:16, to attend religious services on the Sabbath. So, they did the same as all, go and probably read from the Torah. They probably didn't have very much teaching. They just read from it, which would be really, just had a thought walk through my head, them singing. So they're singing the words. Excuse me. Okay, let me get back to the book. Question: how did the apostle spend the working days of his week when at Corinth? And what did he do on the Sabbath? Quote, because he was of the same crowd, he abode with them and wrought, for by their occupation they were tent makers. Acts 18:3. See also Ezekiel 4:1. Quote, and he reasoned in the synagogue every Sabbath, and persuaded the Jews and the Greeks. Acts 18 verse 4. Quote, note, quote, he continued there a year and 6 months, teaching the word of God among them. Verse 11. These texts do not definitely prove that the apostle held 78 Sabbath meetings in Corinth, but they show conclusively that it was his custom to observe that day by devoting it to religious purpose. The careful student will note in his reasoning in the synagogue every Sabbath applies only to the comparative brief time during which he was permitted to use of the synagogue. But the history of the apostles' work in the book of Acts fully warrants us to believe that whatever he was, Paul utilized to the full to fill every opportunity to persuade his gospel works on the Sabbath. The same is true not only with the apostle, but of most Christians during the first 3 centuries. So, talking about Paul. Just in case you didn't catch it in the headline. In the MIDI headline. Okay, another MIDI headline said John and the Lord's Day. Question: on what day was John in the Spirit? Quote, and I was in the Spirit on the Lord's Day. Revelation 1:10. Question: who is Lord of the Sabbath? Quote, and the Son of Man is Lord also of the Sabbath. Mark 2:28. Question: what through Isaiah does the Lord call the Sabbath? Quote, and if thou turn away thy foot from the Sabbath, from doing thy pleasure on my holy days. Isaiah 53:13. No, Isaiah 58:13. Sorry, I do that. Sometimes I get my numbers mixed up. Okay. Question. Why did the Lord call the Sabbath his day? Quote, for in 6 days the Lord made the heaven and the earth, the sea, and all that is in them is, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Exodus 20, verse 11. Question. Through whom did God create the world? Quote, God, then three dots, hath in these last days spoken unto him by his Son. Three dots. Excuse me. By whom also he made the worlds. Hebrews 1, 1 and 2. And then it's got a very, very long note. Excuse me. Okay, note. The Bible recognized but one weekly Sabbath, the day upon which God rested and began in the beginning, which was made known to Israel at Sinai, Nehemiah 9:13 and 14, which observed by Christ and his apostles, and is to be kept by the redeemed in the new earth. Isaiah 66:22-23. The terms Sabbath, Sabbaths, and Sabbath days occurs 60 times in the New Testament, and in every case but one referred to the seventh day. In Colossians 2:16-17, is made to the annual Sabbaths connected with the three annual feasts observed by Israel before the first coming of Christ. Quote, the sacred name of the seventh day is Sabbath. This fact is too clear to recognize argument. The truth is stated to coincide in terms. The seventh day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. The utterance is repeated in Exodus 16:26, Exodus 23:12, Exodus 31:15, Exodus 35:2, Leviticus 23 verse 3, and Deuteronomy 5 verse 14. Upon this point, the plain teaching of the word has been omitted in all ages, except to certain special Sabbaths appointed in Levitical law. And these inviolability governed by the month rather than the week. The Bible in all its utterance never, no, not once applies the name Sabbath to any other day. End quote. J. Taylor, in his book The Sabbath Question, Revealed, page 16-17. The first day of the week is mentioned by 8 times but 8 times in the New Testament, 6 of which were found in the 4 Gospels and referred to the days on which Christ rose from the dead. See Matthew 28, verse 1, Mark 16, 2 and 9, Luke 24, 1, St. John 21 and 19. The other 2, Acts 20, verse 7, 1 Corinthians 16, 2, refer to the only religious meeting held on the first day of the week after the Ascension in apostate times recorded in the New Testament, and to the systematic accounting and law laying by the store of home on the day of poor saints, on the day for the poor saints in Judea and Jerusalem. It is evident, therefore, that the Sabbath of the New Testament is the name as the Sabbath of the Old Testament, that there is nothing in the New Testament setting aside the seventh-day Sabbath and putting the first day of the week in its place. Okay. Now we got a news headline. Big, bold, blue headline. The changing of the Sabbath. Subheadline. The Sabbath and law. Excuse me. Quote. Question. Of what is the Sabbath commandment a part? The law of God, Exodus 20, 8 through 11. Okay. Question. In his most famous sermon, what did Christ say of the law? Quote, think not that I have come to destroy the law or the prophets. I am not come to destroy, but to fulfill. Matthew 5:17. Note, okay, quote, he, bracket Christ, fulfilled the moral law by obeying, by bringing out its fullness of meaning, by showing its intense spirituality, and he established it on the user of the he established it on a surer bias than ever as the eternal law of righteousness. He fulfilled the ceremonial and typical law not only by conforming to its requirement, but by recognizing its spiritual significance. He filled up the shadowy outlines of the type, and thus they pass away, and it is no longer necessary for us to observe the Passover or slay the daily lamb. We have the substance in Christ. End quote. The International Standard Bible Encyclopedia, Volume 3, page 1847. Okay. was a lot of big words, wasn't it? Okay. Um, Question: How endured? How enduring did he say the law is? Quote: Till heaven and earth pass away, till heaven and earth pass, one jot or one tittle shall in no wise pass from the law, till all be fulfilled. Verse 18. So Matthew 5:18. Question: What did he say of of those who should break one of the least of God's commandment and teach men so to do? What did he say of those who should break one of the least of God's commandment to and teach men so to do? Okay. Quote: Whoever therefore shall break one of these least commandments and shall teach men so, he shall be called the least of the kingdom of heaven. Verse 9. Matthew 5:9. Okay, note. Looks like a big one. Okay, note. From this, it is evident that all 10 commandments are binding in the Christian dispensation, and and that Christ had no thought of changing any of them. One of these commands the observe one of these commands the observance of the seventh day as the Sabbath, but most Christians kept the first day of the week instead. Quote: It is a remarkable and regrettable fact that while most Christians regard the declude as a whole as being of personal and professional obligation, so many should make the fourth commandment an exception. It is the most complete and comprehensive of all them all, and unlike the rest, is expressed both positively and negatively. End quote. W.C. Proctor in Moody's Bible Institute Monthly, December 1933, page 160. Give me a second. Many believe that Christ changed the Sabbath, but from his own words, we see that he came for no such purpose. The responsibility of this change must therefore be looked for elsewhere. Those who believe that Jesus changed the Sabbath based it only on a supposition. Quote: Jesus, after he resurrected, changed the Sabbath from the seventh day to the first day of the week, thus showing his authority as Lord even on the Sabbath. Three dots. Three dots. When Jesus gave instruction from this charge, we are not told but very likely during the time when he spake to his apostles of the things pertaining to his kingdom. Acts 1 and 3. This is probably one of the many unrecorded things which Jesus did. John 20, St. John 20:30, St. John 21:35. End quote. Amos Bindley and Daniel Steele, Methodist. Benny Theological Comprehend Improvement, page 171. Sorry guys, I'm getting a cold and mucus is building up. Okay, subheadline. That was a long note, so we got a subheadline. A new subheadline. Give me a second. Okay. Bible predicts attempt change. Bible predicts attempted change. Question. What did God, through the prophet Daniel, say the power represented by the little horn would think to do? Quote, and he shall speak words against the Most High, and shall wear out the saints of the Most High, and he shall think to change the times and the law. Daniel 7, verse 25, RSV. Note, for an explanation of this symbolism, see previous section. It says, and the book refers to another page in the book, which a lot of good's going to do when I'm reading the book. Okay. Okay. Question. What did the Apostle Paul say the man of sin would do? Excuse me. Quote, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin is revealed, the son of perdition, who opposed and exalteth himself above all that is called God and all that is called God, or that is worship. 2 Thessalonians 2, verse 3 and 4. Note, an effective way by which a power could exalt himself above God would be by assuming the change of the law of God and by reoccurring observance of his own law instead of God, by recurring obedience to his own law instead of God's law. Okay, subheadline, new subheadline. It says, papal power acknowledges this act. Question, what power has claimed authority to change God's law? The papacy. Okay, note, quote, the Pope is of so great authority and power that he can magnify, explain, and or interpret even divine laws. 3 dots. The Pope can modify divine law since his power is not of man but of God, and he acts as vicegerent vice, vicegerent of God upon earth, end quote. Translated from Lucas Ferris, Prompta Biblicothea, Ready Library, Papa, quote, Papa, or Papa, end quote, Article 2. So this is interesting. I like the way they translate shows you what books. This book shows you what books to go, but it's easier just to follow the the Bible book. Okay, quote. Question. What part of the law has the papacy thought to change? Okay, the fourth commandment. Note, quote, they, bracket Catholics, allegedly, ALLEGE, allege the change of the Sabbath unto the Lord's Day contrary, as it seemeth, to the Decalogue, and they have no example more in their mouths than the change of the Sabbath. They will needs have the church's power to be very great, because it hath dispensed with the prospect of the Decalogue, end quote. The Augsburg Confederation, Lutheran, Part 2, Article 7, in Philip Scays, The Creed of Christian, Harper, Volume 2, page 64. Okay, quote. It, in the bracket, and then brackets, the Roman Catholic Church, in brackets, reversed the fourth commandment by doing away with the Sabbath of God's Word and instituting Sunday as a holiday, end quote. In Somerville, in the book History of the Christian Church, 1873, page 415. Question. Why did God command Israel to hallow the Sabbath? Quote, for in 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, the sea, and all that is in, and rested the seventh day. Wherefore the Lord blessed the Sabbath day and hallowed it. Exodus 20, verse 11. Note, okay, as the Sabbath was given that man might keep God in mind as creator, it can be readily seen that a power endeavoring to exalt itself above God could do this in no other way so efficiently as by setting aside God's memorial, the seventh day Sabbath. The work of the papacy Daniel had referred when he said, quote, and he shall think to change times and laws, end quote. Daniel 7:25. And this next one is really, really long. Okay, give me a second. I get prepared for this. Oh, this it's a long, long note. Click it all over. Okay. It's kind of chilly today, so, and I may have to call, see what's up with my heater. It should be warm in here. I know it's on, but it's not doing. Maybe it's got on. Okay, let me get back to the book. Okay. Question. Does the papacy acknowledge change the Sabbath? Does the papacy acknowledge changing the Sabbath? And it says it does. And then note, the Catechismus, Catechismus Romanus was commended by the Council of Trent and published by the Vatican Press by order of Pope Pius V in 1566. The catechism for the priest said, quote, "It pleased the Church of God that the religious celebration of the Sabbath day should be transferred to the Lord's Day." End quote. Catechism of the Council of Trent. Donosian Translation, 1867, Part 3, Chapter 4, page 345. The same, in slight different wording, is in the Machew and Callan translations, 1937, page 402. Question. How prove you that the Church hath power to command feasts and holidays? Answer. By the very act of changing the Sabbath to Sunday, which Protestants allow of, and therefore they fondly contracted themselves by keeping Sunday strictly, and breaking the most other feasts commanded by the same Church. End quote. Henry Somerville, his book, An Abridgment of the Christian Doctrine, 1833, a proclamation, page 58. Some statements of the Manual of Christian Doctrine edition by Daniel Ferris, 1918 edition, page 67. Okay. Question. Have you any other way of proving that the Church has the power to institute festivals of precept? Answer. Had she not such power, she could not have done that in which all modern religious agree with her. She should not have substituted the observance of Sunday, the first day of the week, for the observance of Sunday, the seventh day, for the observance of Saturday, the seventh day, is a change for which there is no scriptural authority. End quote. Stephen King, A Doctrine Catechism, third edition, page 174. Okay. Quote, the Catholic Church, by virtue of her divine mission, changed the day from Saturday to Sunday. End quote. The Catholic Mirror, official organ of the Colonial of Cardinal Gibbons, September 23rd, 1893. Okay. Quote, number 1. Is Saturday the seventh day according to the Bible and the Ten Commandments? I answer yes. Number 2. Is Sunday the first day of the week, and did the church change the seventh day, Saturday, for Sunday, the first day? I answer yes. Number 3. Did Christ change the days? I answered no. Faithfully yours, J. Cardinal Gibbons. Gibbons autograph letter. Okay. Now we go back to the question. And this is question. What is the Sabbath day? Answer. Saturday is the Sabbath day. Question. Why do we observe Sunday instead of Saturday? Answer. We observe Sunday instead of Saturday because the Catholic Church transferred the solemnity from Saturday to Sunday. Peter Gershman, The Convent Catechism of Catholic Doctrine, 1946 edition, page 50. Garrison received the quote-unquote apostolic blessings, end quote, of Pope Pius X on his labor, January the 25th, 1910. Okay. And it has a comparison right here. Before I finish reading this thing, it has a comparison on a blue piece of paper. And I think I've read this before. And it's the law of God, it's called. And it says the law of God as given by Jehovah. This book puts Jehovah. I don't think it's a Jehovah Witness book, but it has given by Jehovah, and then it says as changed by man. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and read as given by Jehovah list, which are basically the Ten Commandments. Through Exodus 23 through 17, and I've been pretty much reading them all anyway for the whole thing. I really don't want to read them all, because should by now if you've been hearing. But I'll go ahead and read God's law as changed by man. I'll read that instead. Okay. Number 1, I am the Lord thy God, and thou shalt have, sh- uh, I am the Lord thy God. Thou shalt not have strange gods before me. Number 2, thou shalt not take the name of the Lord thy God in vain. Number 3, remember, thou keep holy the Sabbath day. Number 4, honor thy father and thy mother. Number 5, thou shalt not kill. Number uh, number 6, thou shalt not commit adultery. Number 7, thou shalt not steal. Number 8, thou shalt not bear false witness against thy neighbor. Number 9, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's wife. And number 10, thou shalt not covet thy neighbor's good. Peter Gershman, The Covenant Catechism of the Catholic Doctrine, 1946 edition, page 337 and 38. And that really don't sound right. To me, it don't sound right because I've been read it all of them. Because they opt out the verse here. They got two comparisons. They moved the seventh of the verse 4, and they changed it for verse 4 to verse 5, and then they split the others. So they changed verse 5 to 4 and 6 to 5, and then all the rest of it's basically the same. Oh, very confusing. No wonder people get confused about stuff. Okay, let's get back to our chapter. A change of the Sabbath. Okay, question. Do Catholic authorities acknowledge that there is no command in the Bible for the sanctification of Sunday? That they do. Note, quote, I may read from the Bible from Genesis to Revelation, and you will not find a single line authorizing the sanctification of Sunday. The scriptures enforce the religious observance of Saturday, a day which we never sanctify. End quote. James Cardinal Gibson, quote, from his book The Faith of Our Fathers, 1918. Edition, page of 72-73. Quote, now in the Bible it stated that worship should be changed from Saturday to Sunday. The fact is that the church was in existence for several centuries before the Bible, before the Bible was given to the world. The church made the Bible. The Bible did not make the church. Now the church, instituted by God's authority Sunday as the day of worship. The same church, by the same divine authority, taught the doctrine of purgatory long before the Bible was made. We have, therefore, the same authority for purgatory as we have for Sunday. End quote. Martin Martin L. Scott, his in the book Things Catholics Are Asked About, 1927 edition, page 136. If we can con, if we con, if we consulted the Bible only, we should still have to keep holy the Sabbath day, that is, Saturday. End quote. John Locke's A Course in Religion of Catholic High School and Academics, Volume 1, 1936 edition, page 51, quoted by permission of Binzer's Brothers, Inc., proprietors of the copyright. Quote, some theologians have held that God likewise directly determined the Sunday as the day of worship in the new law, that he himself was explicitly substituted the Sunday for the Sabbath. But this theory is now entirely abandoned. It is now commonly held that God simply made his church the power to set aside whether day or days she would deem suitable as holy days. The church caused Sunday the first day of the week, and in the course of time added other days as holy days. End quote. Vincent J. Kelly, Catholic, Forbidden Sunday and Feast Days Occupations, 1943 edition, page 2. Okay, so that's basically saying what the Catholics, according to the book, what the Catholics believe. Okay, now we go into more of what I'm familiar with, because I wasn't raised Catholic. I'm raised a version of Protestant, and our folks, my heritage has always been that, like, forever, as long as I can trace back. Well, I can trace it back way far back, just by chance. Okay, let me get back to the subheadline. Protestants agreed no Bible command. Do Protestant writers acknowledge the same? They do. No, quote, the Lord's Day was merely of ecclesiastical institution. Yeah, ecclesiastical institution. It was not introduced by virtue of the fourth commandment. End quote. Jeremy Taylor, Church of England, his book, Doctor D-U-C-T, Doctor Dubitatum, D-U-B-I-T-A-N-T-I-U-M, Part 1, Book 2, Chapter 2, Rule 6, Section 5159, 1880 edition, Volume 9, pages 458, 464. Okay. Quote, the Lord's Day is not sanctified by any specific command or by any invariable inf- inference. Yeah, inference. In all the New Testament, there is no hint or suggestion of the legal obligation binding any man, whether saint or sinner, to observe the day. It is sanctly arise only out of what is it means to be the true believer. End quote. J. Taylor, Baptist, uh, the Sabbatic Question, page 72. Quote, because it was recognized, that's not recognized, reconciliate to appoint a certain day that people might know when they ought to come together. It appears that the bracket Christian in quote in brackets church did for that purpose appoint the Lord's Day. End quote. August Augsburg Confession. Wait. Augsburg Confession, Part 2, Article 7, in Philip's case, The Creeds of Christendom, Harper, Volume 2, page 69. For additional testimony, see readings on the next pages. Okay, quote, and there are and where are we told in Scripture that we are to keep the first day at all? We are commanded to keep the Sabbath, but we are now commanded to keep the first day. 3 dots. The reason why we keep the first day of the week holy instead of the seventh is for the same reason that we observe many other things, not because of the Bible, but because of the church had enjoyed it. End quote. Isaac William, Anglican, Plain Sermons on the Catechism, Volume 1, page 334, 336. And that's Catachism. Catechism. Okay. Now we're in another subhead line. Give me a second. Okay. It says a gradual change. Quote. Okay. Question. Now, how did the change is observed today's come about? Through a gradual transference. Note, quote, the Christian church made no formal but a gradual and almost unconscious transference of one day to another. W. F. Farr, The Voice from Sinai, page 167. This itself is the evidence that there was no divine command for the change of the Sabbath. Question. For how long a time was the seventh day Sabbath observed in the Christian church? For many centuries, in fact, its observance was never wholly ceased in the Christian church. Note, Mr. Moore, a learned clergyman, at the Church of England said, quote, the primitive Christians have a great veneration of the Sabbath, and spent the day in devotion and sermons, and 'tis not to be doubt but they derived this practice from the apostles themselves. End quote. A doctrine of 6 dialogues on the name, notion, and observation of the Lord's Day, page 189. Quote, a history of the problem shows that in some places it was readily only after some centuries that the Sabbath rest really was extremely abolished, and by that time the practice of observing a bodily rest on a Sunday was taking place. End quote. Vincent J. Kelly, Forbidden Sunday and Festive occupations, page 15. Layman Coleman says, quote, down even to the 5th century, the observance of Jewish Sabbath was continued in the Christian church, but with a rigor and a solemnly gradual diminishing until it was wholly discontinued. Ancient Christianity exemplified. Chapter 26 of Section 2. The church historian Socrates, that makes no sense, Socrates. The church historian Socrates, who wrote in the 5th century, says, quote, quote, almost all the churches throughout the world celebrate the sacred mysteries of the Sabbath of every week. Yet the Christians of Alexandria, and at Rome, on account of some ancient tradition, had ceased to do this. End quote. Ecclesiastical History, Book 5, Chapter 22, in a select library of Nicene and post-Nicene Fathers, second D series, volume 2, page 32. Soesman, another historian in the same period, writes, quote, the people of Constantinople and almost everywhere assembled together on the Sabbath, as well as the first day of the week, which custom is never observed at Rome or at Alexandria. End quote. Ecclesiastical History, Book 7, Chapter 19, in the same volume as the above quote. This is a really long one, too. Excuse me. All this would have been inconceivable had there been a divine command given for the change of the Sabbath. That the two last quotations also show that Rome led the apostasy and in the change of the Sabbath. I'll be back. Give me a second. Okay, dokie. Alright, let's get back to the book. Okay. This subheadline says Sunday observance. Okay. Question: how did Sunday observance originate? As a voluntary celebration of the resurrection, a custom without pretense of divine authority. Note, quote, opposition to Judaism introduced the particular festive of Sunday very early indeed unto the place of the Sabbath. Three dots. The festival of Sunday, like all other festivals, was always only a human ordinance, and it was far from the intentions of the apostles to establish a divine command in this respect. Far from them, and far from the early apostate church to transfer the laws of the Sabbath to Sunday. Perhaps at the end of the 2nd century, a false application of this kind had begun to take place, for men appear by this time to have considered laboring on Sunday as a sin. End quote. Augustus Nieder, the history of the Christian religion and church, Ross translation from the first German edition, page 186. Quote, the observance of Sunday was the first supplement to that, was at first supplemental to that of the Sabbath, but in proportion as the gulf between the church and the synagogue widened, the Sabbath became less and less important and ended at length in being entirely neglected. End quote. L. Duchesne, Duchesine, Christian worship, its origin and evolution. True from the fourth French edition by M. L. McClure, London, 1910, page 47. Question: who first enjoined Sunday keeping laws? Constantine the Great. Note, quote, number 1, that Sunday was the beginning, that the Sunday was in the beginning not looked on as a day of bodily repose, nor was an analogy drawn between the Jewish Sabbath and the Christian Sunday, except as days of worship. Three dots. Number 3. The keeping of Sunday rest rose from the custom of the people and the constitution of the church. Three dots. Number 5. Tertullian was probably the first to refer to the cessation of worldly affairs on the Sunday. The Council of Laodicea issued the first consular legislation for that day. Constantine I issued the first civil legislation. Saint Martin of Braga was probably the first to ever use the term civil work, civil as Servile, work, in the present theological sense. End quote. Vincent J. Kelly, Forbidden Sunday and Feast Days Occupation, page 203. Quote, the earliest recognition of the observance of Sunday as a legal duty is the Constitution of Constantine in 321 AD or CE, enacting that all courts of justice, inhabitants of the town, and workshops were to be at rest on Sunday. Parentheses, ver venerabili de solis, which is, I know, solis is sun. Okay, end quote, in parentheses, with the exception in favor of those engaged in agricultural labor, end quote. Encyclopedia Britannica, 11th edition, article Sunday, okay, quote, on the versable day of the sun, let us magistrates and people residing in cities rest, and let all the workshops be closed. In the country, however, persons engaged in agriculture may freely and lawfully continue their pursuits, because it often happens that another day is not so suitable for grain sowing or for vine planting. Let's be neglecting the proper moment for which operations the bounty of heaven should be lost. Brackets. Given on the 7th day of March, Crispus and Constantine being consuls, each of them in the second year. End quote. Codex Justintagianus, or Just in IANUS, that's the Codex. Library 3, Tilt, Title 12, 3, translated in History of the Christian Church by Philip Scave, Scribner's 1902 edition, volume 3, page 380. The edict issued by Constantine, who first opened the way of the union of the church and state in the Roman Empire, in a manner supplied the lack of a divine command for Sunday observance. It was one of the most important steps of bringing about the establishing the change from the Sabbath. Question: what testimony does Eubus Usus Bibis, Eusebis, Usus Bibis, bears on the subject. Quote, all things whatsoever that it was the duty to do on the Sabbath, where we, brackets the church in brackets, have transferred to the Lord's day. End quote. Translated by Eusebius, commentary on the Psalms in Migne, Migne, in Migne's book, Protogagia Gracia, Protologica Gracia, Graecia, volume 23, columns 1171, 1172. Okay, note. The change from the Sabbath was the result of the combined efforts of the church and state, and it took centuries to accomplish it. Eusebius of Caesarea, 270 to 238, was a noted bishop of the church, biographer and flatterer of Constantine, and the reputed father of ecclesiastical history. Okay. Question. By what church council was the observance of the seventh day forbidden and Sunday observance enjoyed? The Council of Laodicea in Asia Minor, 4th century. Note, Canon 29 reads, quote, Christians shall not Judaize and be idle on Sunday, Sabbato or Sabbath. Okay. Christians shall not Judaize and be idle on Saturday, Sabbato or Sabbath, but shall work all day. But the Lord's day they shall especially honor, and as being Christians shall, if possible, do not work on that day. If, however, they are found Judaizing, they shall be shut out, bracket, anathema, in brackets, for Christ. Charles J. Hoffeld, A History of the Councils of the Church, Volume 2, 1896, English edition, page 316. The Puritan William Prynne, Prynne, said in 1655 that quote, the Council of Laodicea, first settled the observation of the Lord's Day and prohibit, the keeping of the Jewish Sabbath under an anathema. End quote. A brieful polemical dissertation considering a brief polemical dissertation considering, and then three dots, the Lord's Day Sabbath, page 44. What was done at the Council of Laodicea was at one of the was but one of the first steps by which the change of the Sabbath was effected. It was looked back upon as the first church council to forbid Sabbath ordinance and enjoyed Sunday rest as far as possible. But it was not so strict as later decrees. Different writers gave conflicting dates of this council of Laodicea. The exact date is unknown, but many be placed, quote, generally somewhere between the years 343 and 381, end quote. Hafel, Volume 2, page 298. Okay. What do Catholics say of the Protestant Sunday keepers? They are obeying the authority of the Catholic Church. Note, quote, for ages all Christian nations looked to the Catholic Church, and as we have seen, the various state enforced by law her ordinance as to worship and cessation of labor on Sunday. Protestantism is discarding the authority of the church, has no reason for its Sunday theory, and ought logically be kept Saturday as the Sabbath. End quote. Quote, the state, in passing the law that is passing laws from the due sanctification of Sunday, is unwittingly acknowledging the authority of the Catholic Church and carrying out more or less faithful its prescriptions. The Sunday as the day of the week set apart from the obligatory public worship of Almighty God to the sanctified and a superstition of all civil labor, trade, and worldly aversions, and by exercising of devotion, is purely a creation of the Catholic Church. End quote. The American Catholic Quarterly Review, January 1883, page 152 and 139. Quote, if Protestants would follow the Bible, they should worship God on Saturday, on the Sabbath day. In keeping the Sunday, they are following the laws of the Catholic Church. End quote. Author Albert Smith, counselor of the Archdiocese of Baltimore, replying to the Cardinal in a letter of February the 10th, 1920. Parentheses. See more questions from Monsieur Monsignor Sagor, and it says another page in this book. Subheadline: choice of serving and worship. Question: what determines what servants we are? Quote, know ye not that to whom ye yield yourself servants to obey, His servants ye are, to whom ye obey. Romans 6:16. Question. When asked to bow to Satan, how did Christ reply? Quote, it is written, thou shalt worship the Lord thy God, and him only shalt thou serve. Matthew 4 verse 10. Question. What kind of worship does the Savior call that which is not according to God's commandment? Quote, but in vain they do worship me, teaching from doctrines the commandments of men. End quote. Matthew 15 verse 9. Question. What appeal did Elijah make to the apostate Israel? Quote, how long halt ye be ye between two options? If the Lord be God, follow him, but if Baal, then follow him. 1 Kings 18 verse 21. Note, in times of ignorance, God winks at that which otherwise would be sin. But when light comes, he commands men everywhere to repent. Acts 17:30. The period during which the saints' times and the law of God were to be in the hands of the papacy has expired, and that's Daniel 7:25. The true light on the Sabbath question is now shining, and God is sending a message to the world, calling upon men to fear and worship him, and to return to the observance of his holy rest day, the seventh day, Sabbath. Revelation 14:6-12. And then it has reference to other pages we already read. Okay, now we are at another headline. Big blue headline. Let's see if I got enough. I got about an hour left. I might can read that. And it says, big blue headline. Give me a second. The seal of God and the mark of apostasy. That's the headline. Subheadline. Significance. Get my southern mouth right. Significance of a seal. Question. What is the purpose of a sign or seal? Quote. Now, O king, establish the decree and sign the writing that it be not changed. End quote. Daniel 6:8. Note. That is, affix the signature of royalty that it may have the proper authority. Ancient kings used a seal ring containing the names, initials, or monograms for this purpose. Jezebel, the wife of Ahab, quote, wrote letters in Ahab's name and sealed them with his seal, end quote. 1 Kings 21 verse 8. Of the Persian decree, it is said that, quote, in the name of King Ahasuerus was it written and sealed with the king's ring, end quote. Esther 3:12. That's Haridius. Haridius? Haridius. Ahasuerus. Haridius. King Haridius. And that's in Esther. Okay, question. What are the 3 essentials of a official seal? The seal of the lawgiver must show 3 things. Number 1, his name. Number 2, his official position, title, or authority, and so his right to rule. And number 3, the extent of his dominion and jurisdiction. Okay, next subheadline, God seal. Question. What was the prophet commanded to seal? Quote, bind up the testimony, seal the law among my disciples. Isaiah 8:16. Which commandment alone of the Decalogue, Decalogue, D-E-C-A, Decalogue, Decalogue, yes, Decalogue, reveals the name, authority, and dominion of the author of this law. Quote, remember the Sabbath day and keep it holy. 6 days shall they labor and do all thy work. But on the 7th day is the Sabbath of the Lord thy God. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor thy maidservant, nor thy rewind. In it thou shalt not do any work, thou nor thy son, nor thy daughter, nor manservant, nor maidservant, nor thy cattle, nor thy stranger that is within thy gates. For 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth and sea and all in them is, and rested the 7th day. Therefore the Lord blessed the 7th day and hallowed it. Exodus 20, verses 8 through 11. Note. Let me compose myself. Note. In six days, number 1, the Lord bracket name. Number 2, made, official creator. Number 3, the heavens and earth, dominion. This commandment alone, therefore, contains, quote, the seal of the living God, end quote. This commandment shows God's authority to enact all the commandments and shows all the other gods to be false gods. The Sabbath commandment therefore contains the seal of God, and the Sabbath itself, which is enjoined by the commandments, is inseparably connected with this seal. It is to be kept in memory of God's creation for all things, and it itself called a sign is itself called a sign of the knowledge of this great truth. Exodus 31:17 and Ezekiel 2020. I know it's tongue tied. Uh, Question: Why is the Sabbath a great? Why is the Sabbath a sign between God and His people? Quote: It is a sign between me and the children of Israel forever. For 6 days the Lord made heaven and earth, and on the seventh day He rested and was refreshed. Exodus 31:17. Note: the Sabbath is the sign or mark or seal of the Creator. Question: In what two ways does God say the Sabbath is a sign? Number one, quote, "And hallow my Sabbath, and they shall be a sign between me and you, that ye may know that I am the Lord your God." Ezekiel 20:20. Number two, verily, verily my Sabbath ye shall keep, for it is a sign between me and you throughout your generations, that ye may know that I am the Lord that doeth sanctify you. Exodus 31:13. Note: the Sabbath is the sign of God's creative power, whether manifested in creation or redemption. For redemption is creation, recreation. It requires the same power to redeem that it does to create. Quote, "Create in me a clean heart," end quote. Psalms 51:10. Quote, "We are created in Christ Jesus unto great works," end quote. Ephesians 2:10. God designed that each Sabbath shall call him to mind as the one who created us, and whose grace and sanctified power are working in us to fit us for his eternal kingdom. And we have another subheadline: Special seal work predicted. Special sealing work predicted. Question: What special sealing work is to take place just before the letting loose of the winds of destruction upon the earth? Quote, "And I saw another angel ascending from the east, having a seal of the living God. And he cried in a loud voice to the four angels, saying, Hurt not the earth, neither the sea, nor the trees, till we have sealed the servants of our God in their foreheads." Revelation 7:2-3. See also Ezekiel 9:1-6. Okay. Question: What is said of the character of the sealed ones? Quote, "And in their mouth was found no guile, for they are without fault before the throne of God." Revelation 14:5. Question: How is the remnant of the church described by the Revelator? Quote, "And the dragon that was wrought with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which kept the commandments of God and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:17. Another subheadline. It says God's special warning. Question. What threefold warning does the third angel give? Quote, and the third angel followed them, saying with a loud voice, if any man worship the beast and his image, and receive his mark in his forehead or in his hand, the same shall drink of the wine of the wrath of God. Revelation 14:9 and 10. Note, the beast represents the papacy. So he's going to do that. It said it first. I'm just reading what the book said. Note, the beast represents the papacy. The image of the beast represents another ecclesiastical body dominating the civil power. And that refers to previous episodes. And over against the seal of God stands the mark of the beast of apostasy. Against this false and idolatrous worship and the reposition of this mark, the Lord sends this solemn warning. Okay. Question. By contrast with the worshippers of the beast, how are the worshippers of God described? Quote, here is the patience of the saints. Here are they that keep the commandments of God and the faith of Jesus. Revelation 14:12. Because it just says verse 12, so I'm going to say is Revelation 14. Note, to keep the commandments by the worshippers of God and the violence of those commandments by the worshippers of the beast will constitute the destruction between the two classes of worshippers. Question. What power is to enforce a certain mark? Quote, and he, brackets, the two-horned beast, in brackets, causes all, both large and small, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their right hand or in their foreheads. Revelation 13:6. Note, the two-headed beast, the two-horned beast, is understood to represent the United States of America. And then it refers back. As this nation reputes her principles of civil and religious liberty and becomes a prosecuting power, other nations will follow her examples if oppressing those who refuse to yield their allegiance to God. Okay. Another subheadline, mark of apostasy. Question. What is the papacy mark or sign of authority? Question. How prove you that the church hath power to command feasts and holy days? Answer. By the very act of changing the Sabbath to Sunday. which Protestants allow. Henry Turberville, an abridgment of the Christian doctrine, 1833, a prohibition, page 80, page 58. Note, in the letter written in February 8, 1898, Mr. C. F. Thomas, counselor to Cardinal Gibbons, replied to an inquiry addressed to the cardinal, said, quote, "If Protestants observe the first day of the week, are they in the act recognizing the authority of the Catholic Church? It looks that way, since the custom we observe is of the Church and from the Church." End quote. The official newsletter of the Cleveland Diocese says, quote, "By what authority did the Church change the observance of the Sabbath from Saturday to Sunday? The Church changed the observance of the Sabbath to Sunday by right of the divine, infallible authority given to her by her founder, Jesus Christ. The Protestant claiming the Bible to be the only guide of faith has no warrant of observing Sunday. It is a matter of the Seventh-day Adventist is the only constant Protestants. Sunday as the day of rest to honor the Lord's resurrection dates to apostolic times, and was so established, among other reasons, to mark off the Jew from the Christian. Saint Justin of the Martyr speaks of it in his Apologies. End quote. The Catholic University Bulletin, August the 14th, 1942, page 2. The two Sabbaths being a sign of loyalty to the true God, it is but natural that the false Sabbath should be regarded as a sign of allegiance to the apostate church. Such we found to be in the case. For other statements concerning Sunday, go back to the other what it is talking about. 4. Okay. Question: what do Catholics say of Protestant Sunday keepers? Quote, "The observance of Sunday by the Protestants is an homage they pay, in spite of themselves, to the authority of the Catholic Church. Monsignor Louis Sager, Plain Talk about the Protestantism of Today, 1868, page 213. Note, a full realization of this fact will lead those who honestly but integrally have been observing Sunday as the Sabbath to refuse longer to pay homage to apostasy, and return the observance of that which is the sign of loyalty to heaven. Long, a long line. To only work days of rest, which God in His Word had commanded men to keep holy, the seventh day. Another subheadline, and it says persecution of commandment keepers. This bug is bugging. Okay. The persecution of commandment keep. Yeah, persecution of commandment keepers. Question: how will the dragon treat God's remnant people? Quote, and the dragon was wroth with the woman, and went to make war with the remnant of her seed, which keep the commandments of God, and have the testimony of Jesus Christ. Revelation 12:17. Question: how far will the enforcements of this mark be urged? Quote, and that the image of the beast should both speak and cause that as many as would not worship the image of the beast should be killed. And he causes all, both small and great, rich and poor, free and bond, to receive a mark on their hand and on their forehead. Receive a mark in their right hand or in their forehead, and that no man might buy or sell save he that had the mark. Revelation 13:15 through 17. Question: over what do the people of God finally gain the victory? Quote, and I saw three dots, them that had gotten the victory over the beast, and over his image, and over his mark, and over the number of his name, stand on the sea of glass, having the harps of God. Revelation 15:2. And that's the end of that part. And I'm going to stop right here at this part. At this point, because I want to. And plus, my time is just about up for this episode. So I'm going to go ahead and stop before I start this new one. And just talk, I guess, for a bit. Just talk. So, I'm asking for, I guess I'll be asking for, again, for unspoken prayer, for myself and for other things that's going around. Just keep in mind that he knows, and I know he basically says in most of his prayers to be specific, and I've been taught, to ask specifics, but to keep things a mystery and a secret, I don't want to say more than what I'm saying, because I don't want to interfere with what he wants to say about these episodes and stuff that I'm reading. Again, you can go back through. I know I have horrible reading, and then on top of that, this book's got big words, and I have a southern accent and talk southern or Southern American Appalachian. Um, and I have it at very bad pronounced accent sometimes. But just keep prayers in mind with everything that's going on right now in the world, and just pray and uh, keep things what needed. Now I'm getting in the lower half of this book, and the book's called Bible Readings for the Home, and it's a gift edition that was given to someone, and the book itself is from 1963, so that's probably when the book was given. And it's a really nice, good book. So it's a 60-year-old book, and found well, we really don't want to go into all that to downgrade what we're talking about. But anyway, we're basically, let me rewind and say we were basically finishing up on about the rules of the Saturdays, and this part that we finished reading is why some churches or some religions do on Saturday and some do it on Sunday, and explains why. Pretty much we do why we do it that way. I got the reason why I did this today, or did this is not to because I thought, go ahead and try to finish reading this book. Um, Really not much to do today anyway. I got the house arts is already, pretty much caught up a little bit, except for a few things, housekeeping and all. But that's it. And if you like this and interested in it, uh, you can always uh, tell somebody else, and you can always use it for your own Bible studies. I just doing, what the this book says, and just reading what it is with my horrible, very horrible sight readings that I don't really do very well. But anyway, that's it. If you like it, don't forget to comment down below, and don't forget to, you can hear me. I have 3 different places that I have this. I have it here. I have it on, YouTube, Spotify, and Spreaker. So I got all those, and of course, if you wish to help me, you can always go to my my website, Lord's Blog. That's LORGH.BLG. BLOG. Yeah, that's the website I have. It's actually a really called a blog, and I show my artwork there. And so speaking about artwork, I'm working on some bigger than artist cards, because they're not the little trading cards. I got them a little bit bigger. They're more 4x6. I've experimented with them Friday, or a little bit last week, and I have some red ink that's a really dark red, and it didn't turn out the way I thought. So I'm playing, I got some ink from these this subscription I had a few years back. I would like to start getting some more with that subscription, or with a subscription. to these art things, and I would like to go to um, festivals and stuff like that, pop ups and everything. I like to do more of that, but I can't right at this moment because just at this moment I can't do very much. Um, but Lord willing, He will provide an opportunity that I would be able to. Um, anyway, um, I know I'm doing the southern thing, dragging. Um, but that's pretty much it. Don't forget, I do the other two uh, places. They do monetize. I do get some monetize it. The more people I get here on one place, then I can monetize this and monetize my southern voice. But anyway, that's it for today. Um, I'll post some more, um, or do what I can. And thank you for listening. And you can always come back. And I think this book itself has 20, so far, it's 22, 21 episodes. I'm not really sure because I lost count, but I know it's one of them. And of course, you can always listen to it here or at any of the other three places: YouTube, Spotify as Spotify as Laura's blog, and Spreaker as the Loretta Nash Show. So that's what I have, and I'll uh, read and get this going here. And, finish this book, and then I'll decide on whether or not I want to read these 200-year-old books that I got.